Cool, the memory card's probably working now for the first time. This is going to be a quick video just on what the differences are to look for if you're looking to buy an MX5 for the first time. Isn't it, dog? Oh yeah, was that good shit? Oh yeah, that's good shit. I don't know if she's just been fed, so she's just had some more food. I'm pretty sure she's just conned me. But hey ho, so be it. Yeah, no, basically, there's a few minor differences because a lot of these are imported in the 90s because they mass overproduced them basically in Japan. They first came out in 89, and yeah, then I think they actually got released over here in 90. But the Japanese specification, like the Eunos, never got called a Mazda. It was known as a Eunos over there. They always predominantly pointed out just because they've got square backs, and then UK ones have got the number plate for the UK size and it's longer. That's one major difference. And usually, unless it was selected, the Eunos, or basically the British MX5s, never came with a limited slip diff, and they usually didn't come with stuff like a hard top and air conditioning and other bits, but it depends on what the customer ordered or whatever the spec came in. But pretty much all the standard, all Japanese models, all Unoses came with air conditioning, hard top, limited slip diff, and I mean that's all you got really, in power steering if you're lucky, and a few other bits. But I just thought I'd go over, there's a few differences to tell the differences apart, because I think a lot of owners who just have it because it's an MX5, then, you know, there's a lot of market. These appeal to everybody from modifying to just wanting a standard one. It's you know, great all-rounder really, for any age, you know. But yeah, it's basically down to telling the few differences apart, and depending on what you want. Oh, the cat's appeared. I wondered where you were going to appear. Meow. That's Lulu. Basically, early on, they only did the 1.6 engines from, I think, 89 to 93. And they're basically 115 horsepower, like, from factory, and they're generally more of a sought-after engine. It's the engines they race in the racing series for these, and it's generally what the more sought-after ones. However, that being said, the later models in 93, I think onwards, they changed it to a 90 horsepower 1.6, but they brought out a 1.8, which was 130 horsepower. So you got more out of it, but it's slower revving, and whether you got better miles to gallon, who really knows? There's no real way to tell the difference. There probably is engine codes, but even between the 90 horsepower and the 115 horsepower, there is no real great way to tell the difference. Now the problem is with the very early ones, 89 to sort of early 90s, they have they have crank issues. So basically, there's a lot of talk on the forums. If you're looking at one of these, you might hear about the short nose crank wobble, which I think is usually simplified. But there's only usually one way to tell the difference between what you've got and what you haven't, and there's loads of stories of people having like a later model and it's had like the short nose crank swapped into it because it's basically the keyhole, I think, that's on the crank. It just basically wears out and it starts wobbling, and as you're going through the rev range, it eventually knackers the head and everything else. So there's only usually one way. I don't know if I'll be able to pick this up on the camera. But you got the crank pulley basically down at the bottom here, and it'll have notches, these holes in, like sort of holes all going around the outside. A short nose crank will have 4, a long nose crank will have 8, and it's generally the long nose crank engines that I say are more sought after, and you got to really check that out, because my friend bought a 89, great nick, limited rust underneath and everything, not too far off of, you know, it's in good condition. Yeah, later on, about a month down the line, after some abuse, he ended up getting a crank wobble on it, and he just ended up doing an engine swap, and we've actually annoyingly just done another engine swap, and I think this current engine's a lot better. It's a lot more healthy. I think the other engine was down on 3 cylinders, just drinking like, I think, over a litre of oil a tank, which is just insane. But yeah, other than the engine, I mean, I had the privilege of test driving both before I even got to, first time driving one of these. A guy had a 1.8, looked like the Lotus Elan in red and red, gold and white scheme. Had a really dodgy steering wheel on it. But I think that was an import as well. I got to drive the 1.8 version of that, and also drove this initially, but in an older shell, this engine. and this was a 1.6 import from Japan, and yeah, hands down, this car felt great. I really liked it, revved really quickly. I think then from there on, I think I've gathered through my working with a friend and seeing how his engines respond, there's definitely something up with mine. We think it's got a lightweight flywheel, a really lightweight flywheel, because it revs so quick and it drives so quick that I love it. It's great, but I mean, that was probably the selling factor on me. The 1.8 was just so slow at revving. It's still quick, still good, still nice. You know, it gets you there in the first place, but so I've had a really big dinner. And it's like, oh, I need to go and sit down, but not doing it. But yeah, as overall, I really preferred the 1.6. It was such a nicer car to me, but I think ultimately if you get the chance to test drive both, just do it. And if you don't really want to modify one of these, good reason is you'll really like the 1.8, especially if it's stock. My only complaint with one of these is I'm about 5'11", is that stock seats for me are, when you've got the top down particularly, it feels like they fall out. So stock ride height and all that, and I don't really like that. The sunken down bucket seat, oh my god, so nice. There's a lot of people have said to me, though, big man, small car. There's a few things to look for that will cause you a lot of problems on this, particularly with my older chassis. This chassis is great, there's like no rust on it whatsoever, even on the wishbones or anything. Whereas my last one, not so much. I actually didn't think it was too bad until I mean, all of them have got to be welded down here. This bit is all got to be welded by now. I don't think there's really one going that hasn't been. You can see the seal where it's been done in. But that's a must. I mean, because it's generally all the water for your drainage for your soft top is going to come down here, and there's a channel on the inside, and that's basically where they send all the water down through the arch, and it all comes out here, and it's all like efficient. But the problem is that does get blocked up with dirt. Then as the water comes down here, it starts overflowing either down the back of the seats because the drain hole's plugged up, and it will also start flooding into the inside panels down here, and it eventually rots that all underneath. And I don't know. I imagine it's doable, but it's a pain in the neck. You know, if you can keep it nice and dry and fairly clean, so all the drain panels work and everything, then you're going to really extend the life of one of these. The other one is to check is basically the wishbones and all the subframe front and rear, and just make sure the bushes aren't really cracked and the wishbones aren't just like sort of destroyed and flaky with rust, because my last ones were, and even my current friends, it needs some attention. They are solid underneath, but I mean, some of them, I think if you don't underseal them or don't look after them, clean them up, like, they're going to really, I mean, you don't want to end up having a wishbone snap on you or anything like that, do you? It's just not worth thinking about. But that being said, I mean, I say, as long as it's, you know, as long as areas like that are good and the rust down here is okay. Mine, because it had been modified, and only because it had been modified, this one wasn't modified and had the arch liners still in the front. That my old one, because it had an arch liners removed, obviously for some time, the inside panel, not this because this is aluminium, but the inside panel, both sides are just rotted completely through. You could literally stick like a hole through it. It's a massive hole, which I was really surprised at. So that was kind of when I was taking it to bits when I wrote it off anyway. I was just kind of like, well, it wasn't theoretically going to make it through another MOT anyway. But as I said, if you're predominantly looking a quick check to see if this drain hole thing is a problem, even though this might be good, looking okay, is the carpet on the inside here. It will go back down behind both seats, and back here it should be okay unless there's a hole in the roof. But the way to tell is it will be damp behind here on this carpet and bottom behind the seat, and maybe if it's bad, even probably on the footwell and the passenger seat. So that's something to look for. Just basically any dampness or wetness, or you can smell it if it's damp, basically if the moisture's getting in there. This was an automatic when I bought it, and oh my god, the interior, it smelt of lamb. It was fucking disgusting. So thankfully I've had the old interior, which is really nice, to swap into it, and it doesn't smell of lamb anymore, which I'm really grateful for. But yeah, other than that, quick engine, basically just the differences in the pulleys, depending on what you want. If you want sporty driving, even just relaxed driving, the 1.8, as I say, is still a great car. I'd personally still have the 1.6 just because of the diff, but as soon as you start looking at these, I mean, the thing is, if you can get one of a limited slip diff, do it, because aftermarket, if you were to try and get one later, it is an expensive modification and people do ask quite a lot for them. I'm very fortunate with this viscous limited slip diff that it actually works, but I think a lot of them don't, so it's something to look out for as well. It's not really something you can check, but you can imagine if it looks like mine and the guy's missing a tooth or two, you can imagine it's going to have been drifted really badly, and you're not going to really take too much chance on it. But As I say, if it's in good condition, then you've got really nothing to worry about. Just make sure on mileage, but this is saying that this is coming up to about 200,000 miles, and that's mixed between kilometres and miles. So, I mean, this hasn't let me down at all. The only times it's let me down is because of me. So, yeah, that's basically all I'd say. Tyres are the biggest important thing with this in terms of braking and performance. Stock, I think you're meant to have 185s on it, on like 14s. Just don't do it. Just get some nice, decent rubber under there. These, I mean, I'll say decent rubber. These are T1R from Toyos, but even so, they're so good. They're quick wearing, but the cornering and braking performance you get out of the car for it is second to none. You know, it's not even worth comparing it to those Kumhos, which they are literally drift tyres. But I think the scary thing is the guy I bought it off advertised those as new tyres for the car when I bought it, and I'm kind of like, I think it was his wife's car, and it's like, do you really want to kill her with? I mean, because you would with those. You just go to brake and understeer and push. So yeah, if you value your life, get some decent rubber on it and enjoy it. Really, it doesn't, you know, cheap little motoring basically. I would fully recommend it, and good luck to you. I hope that's everything. Who knows?